Hi, this is Ceema. I'm out here to scare you. I promise. I'm going to give you nightmares. You are not going to be able to sleep at night. Now, wait a minute. I was just kidding. I am not here to scare you. I am your teacher, Ceema, and today I mean to show you how you can tell a scary story. Now, listening to stories is so much fun, right? Because everyone's life is pretty much a story. But when you listen to a spooky or a scary story, well, that's a little different because that pushes you to the edge of your seat. You kind of be nervous, you're kind of scared. But let me tell you that telling a story, or a scary story in particular, is an art. So whether you are out with friends, or whether you are, in a classroom with your colleagues, or if you're simply, having a night out with your gang of girls, you can actually tell a very good old scary story and get their blood running and their heart pumping. So today's lesson is going to show you how you can actually narrate a scary story in the most fun and effective way. Let's look at a few tips to understand how you can do that. The first one is picking a topic. Well, of course, a story requires a topic, right? A story cannot ever start without a particular subject. Now, the question is, how do you pick a topic? Well, you are going to talk about things which are recent, which are a little bit more realistic, so where will you get these things from? So to get a good topic to start your scary story, you've got to maybe check the news, because in the news there are a lot of stories about, very horrific events that have happened. And it has to be realistic. So let's face it, guys, talking about vampires and talking trees, well, those are not very realistic and those are things of the past, right? But if you look at the news, probably you've heard of a serial killer who goes out to kill his victims at night and maybe chops off their fingers after having killed them. Well, that is true because that is in the news, right? So you can take something from the news and weave that into your topic, into your story, in order to make it sound more realistic and more recent. Or say, for example, if you are out with girls, your gang of girls, you can talk about how there is someone who only goes after girls at night, So something very scary, but a topic which is recent in order to make it sound much more realistic. All right, now that you've already got your topic, I'm assuming you do, okay, you've got to change the details to suit your exact surrounding. Okay, now what does that mean? What details am I referring to? Now, as important as a topic is, the details refer to the physical setup. So your story would have a physical setup in the sense we're talking about the location. What other details can we think about? We can talk about the victims. Okay, so two important things when it comes to the details of a story is the physical setup, where the story is actually happening, the physical location, and the victims involved, or the people basically involved in the story. Now, when you are telling your story, in order to make it sound more believable, a little bit more scary, you've got to ensure that the physical location of the story is similar to where you are at right now, and the victims or the people involved in the story are very much similar to what your audience is right now. So say, for example, if you were talking about, if you are in someone's house and you have, a group of boys, all of you are boys and you're all talking about a very scary story. So maybe you are going to talk about a scary story relating to boys because you have a group of boys all around you, right? Say, for example, if you're at the beach, you can talk about, a creature that comes out at night, from the sea, because that is similar to the physical location that you are in right now. So if you are in a place like a beach, you can talk about a story which relates to where something goes wrong or something really scary happens around that kind of location. And of course, the people involved should be similar to the audience you are relating your story to. Okay? And yes, well, it is also important that you are natural. Now, a lot of people, they kind of tend to overdo it. Okay? When I am telling you a story, if you want to believe me and if you want me to sound believable, it is important that I sound natural. So we're not going to be over dramatic, okay? So being over dramatic is a strict no-no. You're not going to do that. That's not going to scare your audience. It's going to make you seem very fake and superficial. You can use a very natural tone of voice. However, you're going to ensure that you sound like you are reluctantly telling the story. Okay, so you are not being dramatic. You are going to use a very natural tone of voice, just like you would use when you're speaking to me. Okay, however, you are going to sound reluctant. So you've got to sound reluctant. Now, why should you sound reluctant when you are telling a story? Because when you sound reluctant while telling a scary story, it kind of makes people feel that you're not really wanting to tell the story, but the story is too scary for you to keep it to yourself. You've got to share it with people around you. So that kind of increases the scary quotient a little bit more than it normally should. Okay, so be natural, don't be over dramatic. Keep a natural tone and try to sound a little reluctant to tell the story. Okay? Now, because you have an audience who is listening to you tell your story, seating your audience and how you seat them is very important. Now, if you are telling a story to maybe a group of people, ensure that they sit around you. Okay? And give each and every person in the audience eye contact. Psychology states that when you give eye contact to people, they tend to pay closer attention to what you're saying. Okay, so when you are especially telling a scary story, in order to get people's attention, okay, and to get people's blood running a little cold, you might want to give them eye contact when telling them the story. And also, it's best if they are seated around you so that they can all hear what you've got to say. Okay. Now, let your audience trust you, right? Now, when you tell a story to someone, whether it is a child or an adult, the person has to trust you. If they don't trust you, they don't believe you. And if they don't believe you, your story is no good, right? So let your audience trust you, because an audience can only trust you when you are believable. And how would you be believable? When you can evoke sympathy from them. So try to get sympathy from your audience. Now, how do you do that? You can maybe, just put an arm around one person's shoulder if you know that the person is getting a little bit scared. You can kind of say things like, I don't know if I should say this to you, showing them that you actually care for their feelings, but you want to show sympathy, right? So you're getting your audience to trust you because you want them to understand that the story you're telling them is not just a story, it's quite believable, okay? Now, if you're a general prankster in your group, chances are people may not trust you. So try to be someone who is not a general prankster, because if you want your audience to trust you, you've got to sound more believable by evoking sympathy from them. The next point is to act nervous and scared. Now, did you know that fear or being scared is contagious? I'm telling you, that's true. That's actually true. Because if I'm scared, I'm absolutely sure that I could probably make a little bit more people out here next to me scared as well. So how do you act nervous and scared if you want to kind of spread fear around you? Well, when you're telling the story, you could probably, just be quieter than usual to show that you are in a very somber mood, because that kind of keeps everybody else quiet as well. Or you could maybe, just stop your story for a while and say things like, did you hear that? Like you've heard something very eerie and very scary, but you're not sure. That kind of makes everyone's ears go up as well. Or you could just look around you, as if someone's approaching. So when you start to act nervous and scared, okay, that is contagious. And that actually shows that you are as affected by telling the story as the people who are listening to it. Okay, so if you want your story to have a little bit more credibility, just act a little bit nervous or scared. Okay, and of course, once you're probably at the end of your story needs to have a punchline, right? And because it's a scary story, it should have a scary punchline. Now, a scary punchline can be of different types. You could either yell your punchline. You could, the last bit that's really scary, you could just yell it out. Or you could just lunge forward, like you're sitting in the midst of your audience and you could just lunge forward a little bit, come forward a little bit in order to kind of scare them a little bit more, right? So you could lunge forward. Or if you don't want to be as dramatic as yelling or coming, a little forward, you could simply, end your story with a very somber note. A somber note is like a very serious note telling people why you should never enter that classroom at night, or telling people why you should never really go around at night, at people's playhouses. So that's your scary punchline, okay? Well, that's it from me on this lesson on how to tell a scary story. I hope you can use it to invent your own fictitious, good old scary stories. I'll be back with some more lesson. Until then, this is me saying, keep scaring people.